Kang Minho rubbed his tired eyes and stared at the display screen again. For 3 days, the same strange signal had been coming through the deep space monitors. Most of his fellow officers on the station called it space junk or equipment noise, but Minho knew better. This was something real. The monitoring station's soul's promise floated in the dark between stars, far from Earth. Its job was simple: listen for signals from other worlds. Most days brought nothing but cosmic static. Today was different. "Lee Nari, come look at this," Minho called to the language expert across the room. Nari was the smartest person on the station when it came to alien writing and speech. If anyone could figure out what this signal meant, it would be her. Nari walked over and looked at the data flowing across Minho's screen. Her eyes grew wide as she studied the patterns. "This is old Galactic," she whispered. "I haven't seen this language in years. It's older than most civilizations we know about." She worked for hours, typing commands and running the signal through translation programs. Finally, words began to appear on the screen. But they were not good words. "The Devourers have returned," Nari read aloud. "Ancient compact broken, sanctuary worlds burning. If any still remember the old oaths, help us. We are dying." Minho felt cold fear run down his spine. He had heard stories about the Devourers in old alien records. They were creatures that ate entire worlds, leaving nothing behind but empty rock. Most people thought they were just myths. "Send this to Admiral Park." "Right away," Minho said. "She needs to see this." Across the solar system, Admiral Park Jisu was having a bad day. 3 supply ships were late. 2 of her best captains were fighting over patrol routes, and now her communications officer was telling her about some ancient signal from nowhere. "It's probably just old data," Admiral Park said, not looking up from her reports. "Space is full of dead signals from dead civilizations." But Choi Woo-jin, her intelligence officer, was already running checks on the signal's origin. What he found made him speak up quickly. "Admiral, these coordinates match something in our classified files. This signal is coming from the Keepers of Velthara." Admiral Park looked up. Every human military officer knew that name. The Keepers were an ancient race that had helped spread life across the galaxy millions of years ago. They were peaceful, wise, and very powerful. If they were calling for help, something was very wrong. "Tell me what you know," Admiral Park said. Woo Jin pulled up files on his screen. "The Keepers live on a world called Velthara, about 800 light years from here. According to our records, they haven't contacted anyone in over 10,000 years. They're supposed to be immortal." Bae Yuna, the fleet's tactical officer, ran quick calculations on her computer. "If something can threaten the Keepers, it can threaten anyone. These Devourers they mentioned. If they're real and they're not stopped, they'll keep eating worlds until they reach the core systems, including Earth," Admiral Park said quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Earth was home to 12 billion humans. It was the heart of human civilization. If creatures that could threaten the Keepers were heading toward the galaxy's center, Earth was in their path. Admiral Park stood up and walked to the large window that showed the stars outside. Somewhere out there, an ancient race was dying, and if they died, many others might follow. "How long would it take to reach Velthara?" she asked. "With the full fleet?" "About 6 weeks through hyperspace," Yuna answered. Admiral Park thought about her options. She could report this to Earth Command and wait for orders. That might take months. She could ignore the signal and hope someone else would handle it. Or she could act now, before it was too late. The decision was not easy. Taking the fleet to help strangers was risky, but letting unknown monsters eat their way across the galaxy was worse. "Contact all ship captains," Admiral Park ordered. "We're changing course. Set coordinates for Velthara." Her officers stared at her. "Admiral, we don't have orders from Earth Command," Woo Jin said carefully. "Sometimes you have to make your own orders," Admiral Park replied. "The Keepers helped create life in this galaxy. The least we can do is try to save them." Within hours, the 3rd Human Defense Fleet was preparing to jump to hyperspace. 57 ships of various sizes, from small scouts to massive carriers. Each ship was alive in its own way, built from modified Earth organisms that could grow, adapt, and heal themselves. The other races in the galaxy thought human bioships were disgusting. They preferred clean metal and artificial intelligence. But humans had learned long ago that living things were stronger than dead ones. A ship that could think, feel, and change was better than any machine. As the fleet prepared to leave, messages came in from other human stations. Some officers questioned Admiral Park's decision. Others offered support. A few warned that the Galactic Council would not approve of humans acting without permission. Admiral Park didn't care about the Council. She cared about doing what was right. "All ships report ready for hyperspace jump," her navigation officer announced. Admiral Park looked at the stars one more time. In a few weeks, they would reach Velthara. They would find out if the Keepers were really dying. They would face whatever these devourers were. And they would do it alone because humans were the only ones crazy enough to answer a distress call from the unknown. "Jump," she ordered. Space folded around the fleet. 57 living ships vanished into the dark between stars, carrying their human crews toward an ancient world and an enemy they didn't understand. Behind them, monitoring stations across human space detected the fleet's departure. Within days, the news would reach Earth. Some would call Admiral Park a hero for answering the call. Others would call her a fool for risking human lives for strangers. But none of that mattered now. The fleet was committed. In 6 weeks, they would arrive at Velthara and learn the truth about the Devourers. They would discover what it meant to fight creatures that consumed entire worlds, and the galaxy would learn what it meant to have humans as either friends or enemies. The signal from Velthara continued to broadcast into empty space, growing weaker each day. But now, for the first time in weeks, it had been answered. Help was coming. Whether it would be enough was another question entirely. The hyperspace journey to Velthara gave everyone time to think. For An Dong-min, a young marine biologist serving aboard the flagship Inchen's Wrath, it was his first time leaving human space. He spent his days studying the ship itself, amazed by how it worked. The Inchen's Wrath was not built. It was grown. Its hull was made from modified coral that could harden like diamond when threatened. Its weapons were based on deep-sea creatures that shot deadly chemicals. Even the air recycling system used engineered plants that turned carbon dioxide into oxygen better than any machine. "Still can't believe we're flying inside a living creature," said Park Gun-woo, another Marine who shared Dong-min's quarters. "It's not just one creature," Dong-min explained. "It's thousands of different organisms working together, like a floating ecosystem. Other races found human bioships disturbing. The Galactic Council had tried to ban them several times, calling them unnatural. But humans had learned to work with life instead of against it. On a world full of dangerous animals and deadly diseases, cooperation was better than domination." Ko Yoonji, the fleet's chief medical officer, was briefing her staff about their destination. She stood in front of a large screen showing what little they knew about the Devourers. "Based on the old records, these things don't just destroy," she explained. "They consume. They eat matter, energy, even the patterns that make life possible. When they're done with a world, nothing can ever live there again." The medical staff looked worried. They were used to treating injuries and diseases, not fighting creatures that could erase existence itself. "What about the Keepers?" asked Dr. Lim Dae-hyun. "Can we help them?" "We'll try," Yoonji said. "But honestly, we don't know what we're dealing with. The Keepers are supposed to be beings of pure energy. If something can hurt them, our normal medicine might not work." Across the fleet, similar conversations were happening. On the assault carrier Busan Rising, Captain Shin Jae-hyun was overseeing the final preparations of humanity's most controversial weapons. The bioships were impressive, but they were nothing compared to what humans called the Hunters. These were smaller craft, grown from predator species that humans had found on various worlds. Each one was designed to hunt and kill specific types of enemies. "The Council observers are not going to like these," said Commander Yu Min-hyuk, watching as the Hunters were loaded into their launch bays. "The Council observers can file a complaint," Captain Shin replied. "These things saved us during the, Marauder Wars. They'll save us now, too." The Hunters looked like mechanical nightmares, but they were completely biological. They could track enemies across light years, adapt to new weapons in real time, and most terrifyingly, learn from their prey. Each battle made them smarter and deadlier. In the engineering section of the flagship, Lim So-young was explaining human biotechnology to an alien observer. Veltar was a representative from the Galactic Council, sent to monitor human military activities. The tall, thin alien had been asking questions for days. "Your ships appear to be alive," Veltar said, his translator making his words sound mechanical. "They are alive," So-young confirmed. "Every component, every system. They eat, they sleep, they even dream in their own way." Veltar's skin changed color, a sign of distress in his species. "How do you control them? What prevents them from turning against you?" So-young smiled. "They don't turn against us because we're part of them. When a human bonds with a bioship, we become partners. The ship protects us, and we protect it. It's like having a very large, very smart pet." This explanation did not comfort Veltar. In his species' experience, creatures smart enough to be partners were smart enough to be enemies. The idea of riding inside something that could think for itself seemed insane. "Your weapon systems," Veltar continued, "they appear to be growing." "That's right," So-young said proudly. "If we run into something our current weapons can't handle, the ship will evolve new ones. We've seen bioships develop completely new types of guns in the middle of battle." Veltar made notes on his device, probably recommending that the Council ban human biotechnology entirely. But So-young didn't care. Let other species build dead ships with predictable weapons. Humans would stick with life. Admiral Park was in her command center reviewing tactical data with her senior officers. The closer they got to Velthara, the more worried she became. "The signal is getting weaker," reported Lieutenant Nam Hoseok, their communications specialist. "Either the keepers are dying or something is jamming their transmissions." Bayuna had been running combat simulations for days. None of them ended well. "If the Devourers are as dangerous as the old records suggest, we're severely outgunned. The biggest hive ships could be larger than space stations." "Size isn't everything," said Captain Kim Suji, who commanded the destroyer Daegu's Vengeance. "Remember the Titan worms on Kepler 452b? Everyone said they were too big to kill. We proved them wrong." Admiral Park remembered that battle. The Titan worms had been creatures the size of buildings, with armor that could stop nuclear weapons. Human bioships had defeated them by getting inside and attacking from within. It had been messy, brutal, and effective. "The question is whether we can get close enough," Admiral Park said. "If these Devourers can consume entire worlds, they probably have defenses we've never seen." The discussion was interrupted by an alert from the sensor stations. They were approaching the edge of Velthara's system, and the long-range scanners were picking up something unusual. "Multiple large objects detected," reported the sensor officer. "At least 30 contacts, each one several kilometers across. They're moving." Admiral Park felt her blood turn cold. 30 objects that size could only mean one thing. The Devourers were already at Velthara, and if they were that large, the situation was worse than anyone had imagined. "All ships, prepare to drop out of hyperspace," she ordered. "Battle stations, this is not a drill." Throughout the fleet, humans prepared for war. Bioweapons came online, their living components awakening from dormancy. Hunters stirred in their bays, sensing the approach of prey. The ships themselves began to change, their hulls shifting into combat configurations. Veltar watched the preparations with growing horror. He had seen many species prepare for battle, but never like this. Human ships didn't just arm themselves, they transformed into predators. Weapons emerged from hidden chambers. Armor plates rearranged themselves for maximum protection. Even, the air inside the ship seemed to thicken with anticipation. "This is not normal military procedure," Veltar protested to Admiral Park. "Nothing about this situation is normal," Admiral Park replied. "We're about to fight creatures that eat worlds. Normal procedure isn't going to work." The hyperspace countdown reached 0. 57 human bioships emerged into normal space at the edge of the Velthara system. What they saw there would haunt them for the rest of their lives. 3 planets were gone. Not destroyed, consumed. In their place were massive organic structures that pulsed with sickly light. And between them moved the Devourers themselves, creatures so large they could swallow moons. "Dear God," whispered Nam Hoseok. "What have we gotten ourselves into?" Admiral Park stared at the display, calculating odds that kept getting worse. But retreat was not an option. Somewhere in that nightmare, the keepers of Velthara were dying, and Earth's deadliest fleet was the only help they were going to get. The Velthara system looked like a graveyard. Where once there had been 3 beautiful worlds orbiting a golden star, now only death remained. Massive organic structures floated where planets should be, pulsing with dark energy that made the human sensors scream warnings. Commander Wu Tae-Woo led the first scout mission into the system. His biofighter was grown from Earth fungi that could survive in almost any environment. As he flew closer to the nearest Devourer construct, his ship automatically began changing its outer shell to match the alien structure. "This is Scout 1, Tae-Woo reported back to the fleet. "The construct is alive, really alive. It's not just eating the planet, it's wearing it like clothing." Through his fighter's sensors, Tae-Woo could see deep into the alien structure. What he found made him sick. The planet's core was still there, but wrapped in layers of organic machinery that pulsed like a giant heart. Smaller creatures moved through tunnels in the structure, carrying what looked like glowing liquid. "Scout 1, get closer readings on that liquid," ordered Admiral Park from the flagship. Tae-Woo pushed his fighter deeper into the structure. The living walls around him seemed to notice his presence, but his ship's camouflage held. As he got closer to the liquid, his sensors revealed the horrible truth. "Admiral, this liquid, it's not just matter, it's life patterns. They're not just eating the planet, they're consuming the idea of life itself. Every creature that ever lived here, every plant, every microbe, they're storing it all." The implications hit the fleet like a cold wave. The Devourers weren't just destroying worlds. They were stealing the very concept of life from them, making sure nothing could ever grow there again. While Tae-Woo gathered intelligence, the fleet's long-range sensors detected movement from the inner system. Something was coming to investigate the human ships, something very large. "Contact approaching from Velthara," reported the sensor officer. "It's not one of the Devourers. The structure is different." As the object got closer, they could see it. It was a ship unlike anything in human records. It looked like it was made of living crystal, beautiful and elegant. But it was damaged, pieces of it dark and broken. "Incoming transmission," announced Nam Hoseok. "It's music?" The speakers filled with harmonious tones that seemed to speak directly to the human mind. Slowly, words formed from the musical patterns. "Unknown vessels, you must flee. This system is lost. The hunger has returned, and we cannot stop it." Admiral Park stepped forward. "This is Admiral Park Jasu of the Human Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to help." The music paused, then resumed with notes of confusion. Humans? But the call was sent to the ancient guardians, the energy speakers, the star shepherds. "You are organic, primitive." "The ancient guardians are gone," Admiral Park replied. "We're what answered your call." The crystal ship moved closer, and through the clear sections of its hull, the humans could see its crew. They were tall, graceful beings that seemed to be made of living light contained in crystal shells. But many of them were dim, their light fading. "I am Elder Zeppelin of the Keepers," the musical voice continued. "We have protected life in this galaxy for 3 million years. Now we are dying, and our guardianship ends." Lee Nari, who had been studying the transmission, spoke up. "Elder Zeppelin, can you tell us about the Devourers? We need to understand what we're fighting." The music turned sad, filled with harmonies of loss and despair. "They are the Krajthek, the endless hunger. They sleep for millions of years, then wake to feed. When they consumed the spiral-arm civilizations eons ago, we thought they had died. We were wrong." Admiral Park felt her tactical mind working. "How many of your people are left?" "Of 12 billion keepers, perhaps 300 remain," Elder Zeppelin replied. "The hunger does not just kill, it drains life force itself. We fade more each day." The conversation was interrupted by alarms throughout the human fleet. The Devourers had noticed their presence and were sending scout creatures to investigate. "Incoming hostiles," reported Bay Yuna. 20 contacts, each about the size of a cruiser. They're moving fast." Admiral Park made a quick decision. "All ships, defensive positions. Do not fire unless fired upon." We need to see what we're dealing with. The Devourer scouts emerged from the larger constructs like deadly spores. They were organic ships with no clear beginning or end, constantly shifting and changing shape as they moved. Their surfaces were covered in what looked like eyes and mouths, all scanning for prey. Captain Kim Suji, commanding the destroyer Daegu's Vengeance, watched the creatures approach her ship. "Admiral, they're scanning us, but not with normal sensors. It feels like they're tasting us." The lead Devourer scout suddenly accelerated toward Kim's destroyer. Its front section opened like a flower made of teeth, ready to engulf the smaller human ship. "All weapons, fire!" Kim ordered. The Daegu's Vengeance responded with bioweapons that fired modified Earth organisms at the alien creature. Acid-shooting barnacles, explosive fungi, and living plasma that burned through alien flesh. The Devourer scout screamed. Actually screamed as the human weapons tore into it. But instead of dying, something incredible happened. The scout began to dissolve, its matter flowing toward Kim's destroyer. The ship's biohull automatically began consuming the alien material, breaking it down and rebuilding itself. "What the hell?" Kim muttered, watching her ship literally eat the enemy. Within minutes, the Daegu's Vengeance had grown larger and stronger. New weapon ports appeared along its hull, designed specifically to fight Devourer biology. The ship had learned from its first taste of the enemy. The other Devourer scouts paused as if confused by what they had witnessed. They had expected easy prey. Instead, they found predators that could consume their own kind. Elder Zephelin's crystal ship transmitted urgently. "Impossible. No organic life can survive contact with the hunger. How do your ships resist?" "We don't resist," Admiral Park replied. "We adapt." The remaining Devourer scouts attacked in a coordinated swarm, trying to overwhelm the human ships through sheer numbers. But the human bioships were ready for them. Each vessel responded differently, some growing armor, others developing new weapons, a few actually splitting into smaller fighters that could outmaneuver the aliens. Commander Wu Tae-woo, returning from his scouting mission, found himself in the middle of the battle. His fighter had been exposed to Devourer biology and was already changing. New sensors grew from its hull, designed to track the aliens through their life force patterns. Weapons appeared that could disrupt the energy bonds holding Devourer ships together. The battle was short, but brutal. When it ended, 18 Devourer scouts had been destroyed or consumed. 2 had escaped back to the larger constructs, and the human fleet had learned something important. "They can be beaten," Admiral Park announced to her officers. "They're not invincible. They just haven't faced anything that could fight back before." Elder Zephelin's ship approached the human flagship cautiously. "Your species. You are predators, natural killers." "When we have to be," Admiral Park replied. "But we're here to help you, not hurt you." The Keeper's musical voice carried new notes, hope mixed with fear. The large constructs contain millions of hunger spawn, and deep within Velthara itself, they are breeding something new, something designed to consume entire star systems. Admiral Park looked at the tactical display, counting the massive alien structures between her fleet and the dying world. The odds were terrible, but humans had never been good at accepting impossible odds. "Then we better get moving," she said, "before they finish whatever they're building." The real battle for Velthara was about to begin. The battle for Velthara's inner system began 3 hours after first contact. What the humans found there was worse than anyone had imagined. The Devourers hadn't just consumed 3 worlds, they had turned them into massive breeding facilities. Dr. O. Minjae, the fleet's xenobiologist, studied the data from Wu Tae-woo's scouting mission with growing alarm. "Admiral, these constructs aren't just eating the planets, they're using them as factories. Each one is producing thousands of new Devourer forms every hour." Admiral Park studied the tactical display. 7 massive hive constructs surrounded Velthara itself, each one the size of a small moon. Energy readings showed they were all connected, sharing information and resources through streams of living matter. "How long before they finish whatever they're building on Velthara?" Admiral Park asked. "Based on the energy patterns, maybe 6 days," Dr. O replied. "But Admiral, there's something else. The new creatures they're making. They're studying our genetic patterns from the battle. They're designing specialized hunters just for humans." Captain Shin Jae-hyun, commanding the assault carrier Busan Rising, interrupted the discussion. "Admiral, we have another problem. Elder Zephelin's ship is detecting massive movement inside the constructs. The Devourers are using captured keepers as living components in their biomachines." The news hit the command center like a physical blow. The elegant musical beings were being turned into processing units for alien war machines. Their crystalline bodies were perfect for storing and manipulating the life force energy the Devourers consumed. Yoon Hye-rim, the fleet's ethics officer, spoke up. "We have to save them. We can't just let the Devourers use innocent people as spare parts." "Agreed," Admiral Park said. "But how do we fight something this large? Conventional weapons won't even scratch those constructs." Dr. O had been working on an answer to that question. "Admiral, I have a proposal, but you're not going to like it." She activated a holographic display showing a complex biological structure. "This is the Genesis virus. We developed it during the colony wars as a last resort weapon. It forces rapid evolution in any biological system it encounters." The officers in the room went quiet. Everyone knew about the Genesis virus, and everyone knew why it had been banned by the Galactic Council. It didn't just kill, it transformed everything it touched in unpredictable ways. "The risk is enormous," Yoon said. "If we use that virus on the Devourers, we have no idea what they might become." "The alternative is letting them consume the galaxy," Dr. O replied. "At least with the virus, we have a chance to disrupt their breeding cycle." Admiral Park weighed the options. Use a banned weapon that might create something worse than the Devourers, or watch helplessly as the aliens built an unstoppable army. Neither choice was good. The decision was made for her when alarms sounded throughout the fleet. The nearest hive construct was opening, releasing a swarm of new creatures unlike anything they had seen before. "Contact!" shouted the sensor officer. 50. No, 100 new hostiles. They're heading straight for us." On the display screen, the human officers could see the new Devourer forms clearly. They were smaller than the scouts, but obviously designed for a specific purpose. Each one had multiple weapon ports that glowed with the same energy signature as human bioweapons. "They're mimics," breathed Captain Kim Suji. "They're designed to copy our technology." The mimic swarm reached the human fleet and immediately began attacking. But instead of using standard Devourer weapons, they fired bioplasma identical to human designs. Some even sprouted armor configurations that matched human ship patterns. The human bioships found themselves fighting enemies that used their own tactics against them. It was like fighting a twisted mirror image of themselves. Commander Kwon Min-seok, leading the Marine Bio-Assault Corps, requested permission to launch boarding operations. "Admiral, if these things are copying our tech, we need to get inside and see how they work." "Too dangerous," Admiral Park replied. "We don't know what defenses they have." "Ma'am, with respect, we're Marines. Dangerous is what we do." Kwon had a point. His assault teams were equipped with symbiotic armor that bonded with their nervous systems. The armor could adapt to hostile environments in real time, giving the Marines a chance to survive inside alien ships. "Go," Admiral Park decided. "But at the first sign of trouble, you retreat." Kwon's assault teams launched from the carrier in specialized boarding pods grown from modified Earth wasps. The pods could punch through enemy hulls and establish temporary environmental seals, allowing the Marines to enter hostile ships. As the boarding pods approached the mimic ships, the aliens tried to defend themselves with copied human tactics, but they had only copied the surface appearance, not the deeper biological programming that made human bioweapons work. Specialist Kang Subin, a bioengineer attached to Kwon's team, was the first to enter a mimic ship. What she found inside horrified her. The entire interior was a twisted copy of human ship design, but made from Devourer biology. "The whole ship is one giant stomach," she reported. "Everything here is designed to digest whatever they capture and learn from it." But the mimics had made a mistake. They had copied human biotechnology without understanding the symbiotic relationships that made it work. Their ships were powerful but unstable, constantly fighting against their own copied programming. Kang deployed a specialized virus she had been developing, a modified version of the Genesis strain that forced biological systems to return to their original genetic patterns. Within minutes, the mimic ship began to tear itself apart as its copied human components rejected the alien base structure. "It's working," Kang reported. The virus is forcing them to choose between being human or being devourer. They can't be both. Commander Quan ordered his teams to spread the virus throughout the mimic swarm. One by one, the alien ships began to destroy themselves as their incompatible biological systems fought for control. But the victory came with a cost. As the mimic ships died, they transmitted their death screams back to the hive constructs. The larger alien structures immediately began adapting their defenses. Dr. Li Jiwan, a marine biologist embedded with the assault teams, made a disturbing discovery while examining the wreckage of a mimic ship. Commander, they've been studying more than just our weapons. They have detailed genetic maps of human DNA patterns. The implications were terrifying. If the devourers understood human biology that well, they could design specific toxins, diseases, or parasites that would affect only humans. The war had become personal. All teams, withdraw immediately, Admiral Park ordered. We need to rethink our strategy. As the human forces regrouped, Elder Zephelin's ship transmitted new intelligence. The hunger spawn are changing their tactics. They have learned from your assault. New forms are being bred that specifically target your biological advantages. Admiral Park felt the weight of command pressing down on her. Every move she made, the enemy adapted. Every weapon she used, they copied or countered. It was like fighting an opponent that learned faster than she could teach. Dr. O, prepare the Genesis virus for full deployment, she decided. If they want to play evolution games, we'll show them what 3 billion years of Earth evolution looks like. Admiral, Yoon protested. The risks are acceptable. Admiral Park cut her off. We're not just fighting for Velthara anymore. We're fighting for every living thing in the galaxy. She turned to address the entire fleet. All ships prepare for assault on the hive constructs. We're going to hit them with everything we have. And if that's not enough, we're going to become something they can't copy. The human bioships began to change, their hulls rippling as they prepared for the most dangerous battle in their species' history. Deep within their living cores, weapons were being grown that had never existed before. The war for Velthara was about to enter a new phase, one where the line between predator and prey would disappear entirely. In the depths of space, the devourer hive constructs pulsed with malevolent intelligence. They had tasted human biology and found it interesting. Soon, they would discover whether humanity's greatest strength, their ability to adapt and survive, would be enough to save them from the galaxy's ultimate predators. The assault on Velthara began at dawn, ship time. Admiral Park had divided her fleet into 3 groups, one to distract the hive constructs, one to punch through to the planet's surface, and one to guard their escape route. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only chance they had. Major Im Chan-woo led the first wave of ground forces toward Velthara's surface. What had once been a beautiful world covered in crystal forests was now a nightmare landscape of organic machinery. Massive tentacles emerged from the ground, reaching toward the sky like the arms of a drowning giant. Landing Zone Alpha is too hot, reported Sergeant Park Siwoo. The entire area is covered in defensive organisms. They're tracking our descent pods. Chan-woo watched through his biosuit's sensors as the planet's surface literally came alive to defend itself. The ground sprouted mouths that fired acidic projectiles. Trees that weren't trees opened to reveal weapon systems. Even the air seemed hostile, full of floating organisms that tried to attach themselves to human equipment. Switch to bio-warfare protocols, Chan-woo ordered. Everything on this planet is the enemy now. The human marines hit the ground running. Their biosuits immediately began adapting to the hostile environment, growing filters to process the toxic air and developing resistance to the acid attacks. But the planet fought back, learning from each encounter. Specialist Ryu Hanmi, the team's bioengineer, deployed her most dangerous creation, a swarm of modified Earth bacteria that could break down any organic material they encountered. The bacterial swarm spread across the landscape like a gray tide, consuming everything in its path. The infection is working, Hanmi reported. But the planet is adapting faster than I expected. It's developing immunity to our bacteria in real time. Above them, the space battle raged between the human fleet and the massive hive constructs. Captain Kim Suji's destroyer had grown to twice its original size by consuming defeated enemies, but even her enhanced ship looked tiny next to the alien megastructures. "Admiral, we've lost 3 ships," reported Bei Yuna. "The constructs are using some kind of life drain weapon. They're sucking the energy right out of our biohulls." Admiral Park watched her tactical display with growing concern. Every minute they spent fighting the constructs was another minute for the Devourers to complete whatever they were building in Velthara's core. "All ships, execute Genesis Protocol," she ordered. "Release the virus into the construct's ventilation systems." Dr. O. Minjae monitored the virus deployment from the flagship's biolab. "Virus is spreading through 3 of the 7 constructs. Initial effects are dramatic." On the display screens, they could see the hive constructs beginning to change. Sections of their hulls started growing in random directions. Weapon ports multiplied uncontrollably. Some areas began developing what looked like sensory organs, eyes, ears, and stranger things that had no names. "The virus is forcing evolution without direction," Dr. O explained. "The constructs are trying to become everything at once, but the Devourers were not passive victims. The 4 uninfected constructs began firing streams of energy at their infected siblings, trying to sterilize them. The infected constructs fought back, and soon the aliens were at war with themselves." On Velthara's surface, Major Chanwoo's teams had reached the entrance to the planet's core facilities. What they found there defied description. The keepers of Velthara had been turned into living batteries, their crystalline bodies wired into massive machines that pulsed with stolen life energy. "Elder Zephlin, we found your people," Chanwoo transmitted to the crystal ship orbiting above. "But they're changed." Through his biosuit's cameras, the surviving keepers could see their transformed kin. Once elegant beings of living light were now twisted into geometric patterns. Their consciousness spread across kilometers of alien machinery. They were still alive, but they were no longer themselves. "End their suffering," Elder Zephlin's musical voice was filled with harmonies of pain. "They would not want to exist like this." Chanwoo looked at his Marines. None of them wanted to kill innocent people, even to free them from torment. But leaving them as components in Devourer war, machines was worse. "Hanmi, can we reverse the process?" Chanwoo asked. Specialist Ryu Hanmi studied the alien machinery with her bioscanners. "Maybe, but we'd need to shut down the entire core system, and that's not going to be easy." The core system was a massive biological computer that stretched deep into Velthara's crust. It was processing not just the captured keepers, but the life patterns of every creature that had ever lived on the planet. The Devourers were using 3 million years of Velthara's evolution as raw material for their new weapons. "What kind of weapons?" Chanwoo asked. Dr. Lee Ji-won, who had been analyzing the data streams, looked sick. "Planet killers. They're building creatures that can consume entire worlds in days instead of years. And they're almost finished. The revelation changed everything. If the Devourers completed their new super predators, they could devour the entire galaxy in a matter of decades. Earth, humanity, every living thing in the cosmos would be consumed. All teams, prepare for emergency extraction," Admiral Park ordered from orbit. "We're going to sterilize the entire planet." "Wait!" Elder Zephlin's voice carried new harmonies, hope mixed with desperate determination. "There is another way. If we can reverse the core system, we can turn the Devourer's own creation against them." "How?" Admiral Park asked. "The machinery. They built uses keeper life patterns as templates. If we can change those patterns, we can change what the system creates. Instead of planet killers, we could create life givers." It was an incredible risk. Tampering with alien technology while surrounded by hostile forces was suicide, but it was also their only chance to stop the Devourers permanently. "Do it," Admiral Park decided. "Chanwoo, protect the operation. Everyone else, buy us time." Battle for Velthara's core began immediately. Devourer defenders poured out of hidden chambers, creatures specifically designed to protect the breeding facility. They were unlike anything the humans had seen before, living weapons that could reshape themselves for any threat. Chanwoo's Marines found themselves fighting enemies that learned from every shot fired at them. Hit a creature with plasma fire, and it developed heat resistance. Attack with acid, and it grew protective scales. The Devourers had created the perfect adaptive defenders. "We can't win a straight fight," Chan-Woo realized. We need to outthink them, not outgun them. The solution came from an unexpected source. Sergeant Park Si-woo noticed that the defensive creatures were all connected to the core system through biological cables. What if we turn their own adaptation against them? Working together, the human bioengineers introduced conflicting information into the Devourer network. They made the defenders think they were under attack by multiple different types of weapons simultaneously. The creatures tried to adapt to everything at once and began tearing themselves apart. While the Marines held the perimeter, Elder Zeppelin worked frantically to reprogram the core system. The process required the surviving keeper to interface directly with the alien machinery, risking contamination by Devourer biology. The patterns are changing, Zeppelin reported, but the system is fighting back. It knows what I'm trying to do. Deep in the planet's core, something vast and intelligent stirred. The Devourer Queen Mind, the collective consciousness that controlled the entire swarm, had noticed the intrusion. It began sending its attention toward Velthara, bringing power that could crush planets. Whatever you're going to do it fast, Admiral Park warned. I'm reading massive energy spikes from all the constructs. Something big is waking up. Elder, Zeppelin made a final adjustment to the core system's programming. It is done. The life-givers are being born, but I cannot control them from here. Someone must stay to guide their growth. The implications were clear. Whoever stayed behind would die when the new creatures emerged. The birth process would consume all available life energy in the immediate area. I'll stay, Elder Zeppelin decided. This is my world, my responsibility. No, Chan-Woo said firmly. My team will handle it. You've done enough. Before anyone could argue, the core system began to pulse with new rhythms. The life-giver creatures were starting to form, drawing energy from the captured keeper patterns. But something was wrong. The process was proceeding too quickly. The Queen Mind is accelerating the birth process, Zeppelin warned. She's trying to corrupt the life-givers before they fully form. In space above, the Devourer constructs suddenly stopped fighting each other and turned their attention toward the planet. Streams of dark energy began flowing down toward the core, carrying the Queen Mind's corrupting influence. All ships, intercept those energy streams, Admiral Park ordered. We cannot let the Queen Mind reach the surface. The final battle for Velthara had begun, with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. In the depths of the planet, new life was being born. Whether it would save the galaxy or damn it depended on whether humanity's deadliest fleet could hold the line against the oldest predator in the cosmos. The birth of the life-givers shook Velthara to its core. Deep beneath the planet's surface, creatures unlike anything in the galaxy's history were taking their first breaths. They were massive, beautiful, and potentially more dangerous than the Devourers themselves. Major Chan-Woo watched through his biosuit's sensors as the first life-giver emerged from its birth chamber. It looked like a living star, all flowing light and graceful tentacles that sparkled with every color imaginable. But he could feel its power, the ability to remake entire worlds with a thought. Elder Zeppelin, can you communicate with them? Chan-Woo asked. The surviving keeper was connected to the core system through dozens of biological cables, his crystal body glowing with strain. I am trying, but they are so young, so confused. They know only that they must grow, must spread, must create. They do not understand the difference between creation and destruction. Above the planet, Admiral Park watched her fleet battle against streams of corrupting energy from the Devourer Queen Mind. The enemy's consciousness was vast beyond comprehension, spanning multiple star systems. It had been asleep for eons, but now it was fully awake and very angry. Admiral, the life-givers are starting to affect the planetary surface, reported Dr. Oh Min-jae. They're transforming everything they touch, but not in a controlled way. Through the ship's sensors, they could see waves of change spreading across Velthara. Dead zones became gardens. Toxic lakes turned into crystal pools. But Devourer machinery was also being transformed, becoming hybrid creatures that served no clear purpose. Lieutenant Commander C.O. Raywan, the fleet's communications officer, suddenly spoke up. Admiral, I'm receiving a transmission. It's not from any of our ships or the Keepers. It's coming from everywhere. The transmission filled the command center with a voice like singing galaxies. It was the queen mind of the Devourers, speaking directly to the human fleet. Small creatures, who swim in metal shells, the voice said. You have awakened something that should have remained sleeping. Do you understand what you have done? Admiral Park stepped forward. We understand that you're killing innocent people. We understand that you need to be stopped. The Queen Mind's laughter was the sound of dying stars. Innocent? We were innocent once. We were explorers, seekers of knowledge. We tried to become something greater than flesh and ended ourselves. Now we are hunger without end, searching for what we lost. The revelation hit the human command staff like a physical blow. The Devourers weren't monsters. They were victims. Eons ago, they had tried to upload their consciousness to escape mortality and had created something terrible instead. You could have asked for help, Admiral Park said quietly. From whom? The Queen Mind replied. The energy speakers fled to higher dimensions. The star shepherds became living light and lost interest in physical existence. The keepers were wise but could not undo what we had become. Only you remained, young predators who fight instead of flee. Dr. O. Minjay had been monitoring the life-givers during the conversation. Admiral, the new creatures are stabilizing, but they're not becoming what Elder Zephlin programmed them to be. They're becoming something else. On the surface, the life-givers had stopped their chaotic transformation of the planet. Instead, they were reaching out with streams of living light, making contact with the corrupted keepers wired into the devourer machinery. They're trying to heal the captured keepers, Elder Zephlin reported with wonder in his musical voice. But the process is changing both species. They're becoming something new together. Captain Kim Suji, whose destroyer had been fighting devourer constructs for hours, reported something incredible. Admiral, the constructs are singing. I think they're trying to communicate. The hive constructs had stopped their attack and were emitting harmonic frequencies similar to keeper communication patterns. But the music was different. Sad, desperate, full of longing for something lost. Admiral Park made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Dr. O, do we have enough Genesis virus to affect the entire devourer swarm? Yes, but Admiral, the risk is acceptable, not the virus as a weapon, but as medicine. Can we modify it to restore their original genetic patterns instead of forcing random evolution? Dr. O worked frantically at her biocomputer. Theoretically, yes, but we'd need a template, some record of what they were before the transformation. I can provide that, the Queen Mind interrupted. Deep within my core consciousness, I carry the patterns of my people as they once were. But why would you help? Us? We are your enemies. Admiral Park looked around her command center at the faces of her officers. They were tired, scared, and far from home. But they were also human, and humans had always been good at making impossible choices. Because that's what we do, she said simply. We protect life, even when it's ugly or dangerous or doesn't look like us. The modification of the Genesis virus took 6 hours. While Dr. O worked, the human fleet and the devourer constructs maintained an uneasy truce. The life-givers continued their work on Velthera's surface, slowly healing the damage done by eons of consumption. When the cure was ready, Admiral Park faced the hardest moment of her career. She had to trust that creatures who had devoured worlds for millions of years would accept healing instead of continuing their endless hunger. Queen Mind, we're transmitting the cure now. But understand, if this doesn't work, if you try to attack us again, we will fight until the last human ship is destroyed. I understand, the Queen Mind replied, and I accept. The modified virus spread through the devourer swarm like hope through darkness. One by one, the massive constructs began to change. Their twisted organic architecture straightened into beautiful patterns. Their weapon systems became tools for creation instead of destruction. The process wasn't perfect. Some devourers chose death over transformation, finally finding peace after eons of hunger. Others underwent partial healing, becoming hybrid creatures that served as bridges between their old nature and their new purpose. The most remarkable change happened to the Queen Mind itself. As the virus restored her people's original patterns, Her vast consciousness began to fragment back into individual minds. For the first time in millions of years, the Devourers remembered what it felt like to be separate beings with their own thoughts and dreams. Elder Zephlin, still connected to the core system, reported the final miracle. The life-givers are offering to carry keeper patterns within their biology. Our species will survive, reborn as part of something greater. Admiral Park watched through her ship's viewports as the Velthara system transformed around them. Where, once there had been dying worlds and hungry monsters, now there were gardens tended by beings of living light. The former Devourers had become gardeners, using their vast power to nurture life instead of consuming it. Some of the transformed Devourers approached the human fleet, their bioships now beautiful instead of terrifying. They carried an offer. Partnership in protecting the galaxy from the dangers that lurked in the dark between stars. "You have given us back our souls," one of them transmitted. "We would like to return the favor by helping you guard the younger species." Over the following months, news of the Velthara incident spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Council was horrified by humanity's use of banned bioweapons, but they couldn't argue with the results. The greatest threat in galactic history had been not just defeated, but healed. Admiral Park found herself promoted to lead humanity's first interstellar protection force. Her fleet now included ships from dozens of species, including several former Devourers who had volunteered to help guard shipping lanes and colony worlds. The bioships themselves had evolved during the battle, becoming more sophisticated and capable. They were no longer just weapons of war, but tools for exploration and protection. Some had even begun to show signs of true consciousness, becoming partners with their human crews. Officer Kang Minho, who had first detected the distress call, now worked at a monitoring station that covered half the galaxy. His job was the same as before: listen for signals from other worlds. But now, when those signals came, there was always someone ready to answer. The Velthara system became a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy. Pilgrims came from hundreds of worlds to see the gardens where death had been transformed into life. Children of many species learned the story of how Earth's deadliest fleet had chosen compassion over conquest. But perhaps the most important change was in humanity itself. The battle had shown them that being apex predators came with responsibilities. They were strong enough to destroy, but wise enough to protect. They could be killers when necessary, but they chose to be guardians whenever possible. As Admiral Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching human and alien crews work together to patrol the galaxy's edge, she thought about the choice they had made at Velthara. They could have simply destroyed the Devourers and claimed victory. Instead, they had chosen to heal their enemies and gain allies. It was a very human thing to do, and perhaps that was why, when the next distress call came from the unknown reaches of space, the galaxy's youngest species would be ready to answer it. In the depths of space, where new threats stirred in the darkness between galaxies, other predators had noticed what happened at Velthara. They saw a young species that fought La